Far-Flung Tin Can, we are bridging the gap between two diverse worlds, the Christian home and the mission field, through missions awareness, missions engagement, and worship in everything. We're traveling the world to the most remote places on the planet to find those who have laid down everything to say yes to God. And whoever said missions can't be fun? God is calling. Will you take the call?
All right, so it's 10:17 p.m. here in Thailand. It's 10:17 a.m. in Gainesville, Georgia, where we have our friend. You can't resist. How's it going?
Good. How are you doing? I love the beer.
You're supposed to be here.
Yeah, but I'm here.
But I'm not. But you're in your office.
Yeah.
So tomorrow we're gonna start trekking through. We're gonna start trekking through the jungles and heading up into the villages where Charlie was like the first one to reach. Anyone in these villages, like there's no path up there, and he was the first one to make a way and witness to them, and so much has changed now. So we're gonna start documenting that tomorrow.
My name is Jeremy, and I do youth pastoring here in Chiang Mai, Thailand, and I love it. I get to hang out with these kids every day. I also do media work here in Thailand. It's just hard to it's a new generation, and we try to help by raising support for our ministry, sending out videos and everything like that, showing leadership to these young kids. You know, I wasn't always the best example, and God has changed my life, and I want to show them that you don't have to go into worldly things or anything like that to serve God. You start young and have a purpose in life. So we have weekly service every Friday. Monday, Tuesday we have a Bible study.
Jeremy was a lot like us, I think, because we connected through Josh Garcia. That's right. So they went to school, and he had a lot of stories about Josh. You can see, though, when he's like interacting with the kids, because he does a lot of the work with the kids at the school and the orphanage, and you can see how he really connects with them and wants to connect.
Clutching the truck like it's...
Okay, are you in like securely?
No foil. We're about to go.
Fear bonds. We're fear bonding.
We're fear bonding. It looks a lot like poop. Is that a Kubota?
It's done already, yeah.
Get her in.
Kyle, you right there?
It's not moving, guys. What that level was? It was that.
What?
What the level where I started speaking in tongues? It was that.
Did you go?
This is how we came and went before this road out here was ready. And it was a 3-hour boat ride up the river and had some wild adventures on it. Used to love it. It was just so beautiful. But it is a bit of a treacherous thing, and there was some wrecks, stuff like that. But yeah, that's how we used to get back here.
3 hours up, 3 hours down.
Yeah.
Couple capsides.
Couple capsized, almost lost a couple guys, didn't know how to swim, and thank God we had some strong swimmers on the team, jumped in, got them.
Tell us about this village that we're going to.
We're going to a village called Awijo. We built a church there, I'm guessing 6-7 years ago. It was kind of similar. It's what they call a refugee village. In other words, it started from people who got kicked out of other villages. People came to Christ, and then their villages chased them away. And so that was the beginning of Awijo. One of the other reasons they settled that area, it's got good water, but it's also accessible to a jungle area that still has gibbons and some wildlife in it, which is kind of unique back here, because there's not a lot of wildlife left in Thailand. And if you get an area that's got, still got jungle animals and all, it's, pretty much a good wilderness area.
They had a project. There was this huge field that they want to clear. And they want to clear this field so the kids have a safe place on the mountainside to be able to come to be able to use for their events, for their soccer, for the kids to have a safe place to come. And then they also will use this for regional and district meetings. And they said thousands of people will come from churches all in this region. And as they plant new churches, these churches will come for these like kind of district meetings for villages. 10 and 20 villages will come. And so, but they have requested approval with Charlie, and basically they're asking Charlie for the money. It's going to cost a couple $1,000s to bring in the equipment and do this. And so Charlie is letting us know that, you know, for this particular project, it's not that it's going to be a no, but it's just going to be a not right now. The funds aren't here right now. So as Charlie was telling us about it, I mean, we started kind of looking around, and we were able to have the funds for that. And so we get there, Charlie's made the call, and I expected this like nice, really already almost done field, and we're like in the mountains. And so they're basically going to create a field out of the mountains.
They say this thing won't run because of the tire. But I found this, and I brought this Leatherman tool with me. It's got a bunch of tools, a knife and stuff, and I think we're gonna make this work. I need Deethra. Deethra, go ahead and begin to pray. There we go. There. Yeah. Well, they were fortunate to have a couple people on the trip that weren't from Ohio.
That's true.
That know how to work.
Work on tractors.
Yeah, because Ohioans don't know anything about farming.
And I am from Ohio, guys. You were trashing Ohio a minute ago.
Thank you.
We got some farmers.
How long
in
do
Ohio.
you have to live in Thailand to no longer be from Ohio?
Hey, a Buckeye is always a Buckeye.
There we go.
Oh man!
I feel bad for you, Charlie, but all right.
Golly. I got it. I know it looked like it was a little smaller, that tire, but we ended up making it work, and now we're ready to go. It's another village saved. Feeling good. Hey, Clark, you still over there doing nothing? Okay, good.
Each village likes to have all the churches in the area come together, and they do like a little camp meeting, a little type meeting together. So this field, they'll put a stage at one end, and then they'll have, sometimes in meetings, about 2,000 people will come to these meetings. And so this church, for a village like this, to get to the status where they can host one of those district meetings is like a big thing. So they're really pumped, really excited about this.
So they got this huge tractor, and they take it down to the field. And I'm thinking, okay, this is good. They got a tractor. I've seen this plenty of times. Tractors and fields, no big deal. Until all of a sudden they set the fields on fire. Like they're walking around with like torches, and they're burning the jungle down. And nobody's nervous, except for our team, who's looking around saying, this doesn't seem like a normal thing. We don't usually set the hills on fire. Everybody seems nervous, except for two people. Kyle doesn't seem nervous. He seems excited to get Buzz out. Because in Kyle's mind, this is amazing. Let's get Buzz out and fly him over the flames. Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Buzz. So Kyle's in it, and Isaac is like a monster. He's right in the middle of all the flames, and they're just like shredding this field with these hand tools and stuff. And a few of us, me, I'm just kind of nervously trying to make sure that I don't burn to death. As soon as they had the green light, man, they set them fields on fire. It was an epic moment too of the trip. They now will be more established as a village. I wouldn't say that they would be elite, but that gives them an opportunity to be a hub for a lot of other villages. So other villages will come, and they'll have opportunity to have a larger area for villagers to come, whether that be for medical supplies, whether that be for treatment, large services, evangelistic services, where they'll reach out to thousands of other villagers that will walk for miles and miles just to come there. And so it'll change that region. It gives them an ability to be a larger voice to that region.
We had applied for adoption with the Thai government. Kathy was very interested in adopting a child, and so she was kind of, I hate to say it, but dragging me along a little bit.
He didn't want any more children, but I knew that God had put that dream inside my heart. It was like I was pregnant with those babies. It was like I was pregnant with those babies. They were inside of me, inside my spirit. That's where they were, inside my spirit, and I knew that they were my twins. So I went to God and I said, God, that's what I always do now. I learned to run to my Father. When I got a problem, I run to Him and I told Him, I said, Father, there's something wrong. I guess I must be wrong. I must have misheard you. I must have got it wrong or something, because you know what? Charlie and I are supposed to be one. And you know, he doesn't want another child, so maybe I got it wrong. So I said, okay, God, if this is just me, then take this thing out of this burning in my heart for my twins, just take it out by the root, you know. And then I just and then I'm gonna place Charlie in your hands. I said, I can't deal with Charlie. So I put him in God's hands. I said, now you deal with Charlie, I can't.
We had just finished a 90-day training center, was very, very tired, because back then, Kathy and I, we didn't know too many people, and we would preach 5 hours a day at our Bible school. And so when you preach for 3 months, 5 hours a day, there you are exhausted. So we headed out of town, and it is kind of funny because we got into the truck and I looked at her. I had sensed in my heart we were supposed to go to a certain town. She had sensed in her heart we were supposed to go to a certain town, but we hadn't talked because I didn't want to go to that town and she didn't want to go to that town, because we knew too many people there, and if we went there, they'd ask us to preach, and the last thing we wanted was to see another pulpit, you know. So anyhow, I said, you know, where do you want to go? She said, well, I don't know, where you want to go, you know. And I said, well, I don't really want to go there, but I think we're supposed to go up to Chiang Rai. She says, well, that's the same thing I'm feeling. We're just sitting there chatting with these friends, and Kathy mentioned that we were in the process for adoption. When they heard that, they just lit up. They said, just today, we heard about a set of twins that was supposed to be murdered. And they said, you've got to go to that village. And we went up there and got very, very remote area, and they had a set of twins, and they were wrapped. They're just 10 days old at the time, and it was in a tiny little clinic, and there was 4 or 5 elderly people with real serious diseases there. The day that they were born, when the mother went into labor, one of the nurses from the clinic happened to be in the village, and so they invited her into the little hut. She said when the second baby was born, then everybody freaked out. The nurse said that within minutes the entire village had surrounded the hut and was chanting to kill him, to kill him, to kill him. And because there was an outsider there, the mother and father wouldn't kill the babies. So the nurse she took the babies out of the village. She gave them to 2 families that worked for the local drug warlord at that time. His name was Kun Sa. He was the U.S. government's #1 most wanted criminal in the whole world. He was the Osama bin Laden of that day.
If they hadn't have died there, in that situation, then this guy, these people, these 2 families that had him was a part of this army that was there, you know. The guy who took him and raised him up in the opium. But that's what they would have done. They would have destroyed them one way or the other.
And oddly, the nurse, after she gave the babies away, she met the baby's mother, and she was puzzled, and she says, how is it that a mother could kill their babies? And the mother said, you know, I love my babies. I didn't want to kill my babies, but because of the culture of our people, if we don't do that, then we're forever banished from our tribe. We lose all contact. So she said, this is just what we do. So then the mother asked the nurse, she says, when you give my babies away, I ask one thing, that you would give them to the same family so they can grow up as brothers. So then the nurse got back, started feeling guilty that she had already given the babies to 2 different families. So she went and negotiated with the families to get the babies back, and she ended up paying the equivalent of $4 each for them. So when we came to the village that day, the nurse had to go down and fly to Bangkok. She had to leave within like 3 hours. She had no idea what she was going to do with these babies. So we said, well, we'll take the babies. Both the boys are married, and both of the boys work with our ministry. Both families were here in Thailand up until just 1 year ago. And 1 year ago, I had asked Jason and his wife Shania if they could relocate to the U.S. and take over our U.S. operation. So basically, they live in Tucson, Arizona, and they run the stateside ministry aspect of Living Word Ministries and our coffee business. Jason is actually, we're putting a roaster in this year, and he'll actually become our roast master as well, and processes all the orders of the coffee business. Jeremy and Sonia live here and work with the ministry. Jeremy's our youth pastor and our head of our media team, and his wife Sonia, which I just had a little baby, beautiful little granddaughter.
It's really interesting because she's like 7 or 8 days old, and Charlie, when they kind of were able to bring Jeremy into their home, he was like 7 or 8 days old. And so it's neat now seeing Charlie hold this little bitty baby, 7 or 8 days old, as he holds his granddaughter. When the last 7 or 8 day old baby that they were bringing into their home was Jeremy and Jason.
They reached out and they loved on these two babies that they didn't know, and they gave them a chance in this world because there's no way they would have lived. It's beautiful to see how 27 years later, they're intricate parts of their ministry.
The villages that it started in, and your stories of the kind of the meagerness of what it began as, but that's not what we drove into first. And so we said, okay, well, here's where it started in these villages, but now here we look at all these things. We drive up to these just lush places, and so, but then now, you know, days into the trip, we're back at the villages.
Right.
It seems like the one common thread that has, from beginning to now, because I don't even say end, is villages. Like that they've had this common thread.
Well, that little village we went up to this afternoon, I mean, my heart goes out for those kids. I see that kid had the scabs on his head and stuff like that. Man, I mean, you got children suffering, and, you know, there's really not a need for that. With very little medical attention and cleanliness, that child wouldn't have to suffer like that. And so I've always been drawn to the down and outer, probably because of where I come from in life. And so that's where the vision is continually cast to. Because like if you look at everything, the children is to rescue children out of situations like this. Not every child's being rescued out of trafficking or something. In fact, very small percentage in our ministry is. But there's, you know, an orphan who wouldn't have somebody to care for them. Or I'll take 6 kids from that village because what kind of future are they going to have there? So if we can come in and make changes like that. So that's what the children's home's about. The Bible school is the same thing. We're pulling people, like what you guys didn't hear at the church dedication is Prateep went up at the end and made a pull for people interested in the Bible school so that they could come and be trained in the Word of God, so that they can come back to this village. We don't necessarily want our people to go into the city and just get a job and do well. We want them to have a heart to go into these villages and continue to spread the gospel. And then the coffee. You know, the coffee is, we have, with Garoon, he's had a burden for years to see the villagers have an income. Because he grew up seeing that not happening, and we've talked for years and years before we ever started coffee of how can we help to stimulate an economy in these rural villages where the people can see a better life. You know, my heart is always to reach out and help someone that can't help themselves.
Charlie seems like a person that before he is who we know him to be now, could have been easily looked over. He was on the fringe, being involved in the scenes from the 70s, whether that be drugs and those kind of things. And it would have been easy for somebody to just kind of pass him over. But Charlie was somebody that the Lord never passed over. I think Charlie had this pursuit. He wanted to see people that had been passed over, people that no one else had reached. I think because he'd been that person. When he came to the Lord, he didn't know about the Lord. He didn't know all the things. He didn't know how he was supposed to react or what it meant for the Lord to touch your life.
You know, we're building almost a church a month right now, consistently, every year, boom, 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 10 to 12 churches being built. Got 700 kids, and I said, you know, if we just kind of keep that up and just kind of maybe perfect it, make everything a little bit better, but just kind of keep that moving forward. I said, you know, everybody thinks that's a pretty big deal. I said, we probably ought to be able to just kind of cruise like this, huh? The Lord really dealt with me that day, and I had a real experience with him, and I felt he spoke this to me. He says, son, he says, you know, I finally got you to a place where you got a little bit of wisdom. And he says, I finally got you to the place where you have a few contacts, and I finally got you to the place where you actually know how to make things happen. You know how to get a job done. He says, why would I let you coast or put you in retirement now when I finally got you to the place where I can really use you to shake my kingdom and expand my kingdom? And I saw the whole next step of ministry. And I said, God, I said, you know how much this is going to cost? And then I said, you know how much work this is? And so anyhow, we settled it out that day, and I got fired up because I love working for God.
You know, I'll never be Charlie, but it lets me know that God is not intimidated by how old or young. He's not intimidated by anything. All he needs is a yes. Charlie has been God's yes man.
I still have a lot of dreams and visions, nowhere near my finished.
To hear them say, God told us this, and we said yes, but the way they said it was just like there is no other option.
Charlie found that the Lord will lead you. The Lord doesn't lead you to where you want to go. The Lord leads you to where he wants to send you. And Charlie was willing to go to where God was willing to send. I think that's why Charlie was chosen, because Charlie said yes. God pointed him in this way, and so he just took off. God just pointed him towards Thailand, and Charlie just bit, and he went. And then he realized, man, there's all these people who don't know nothing about Jesus. Let's go. And the further he went, the more people he found. And he just kept going further and further and further to find more and more people.
And for Charlie to take his machete and cut through these jungles years ago to find these people and to witness to them, that speaks so much to me. There's so many lost people in the city where he lives. He could have just stayed there. But if he didn't go there, who would? Nobody. He paved the way.
And Charlie spent a lot of his life reaching out to people who have never even heard of Jesus. But whether you've heard of Jesus or not, Charlie wants those who are lost to be found. And the corner of the globe that God gave Charlie, some of those people had never heard. Sometimes he had to cut his way into that place. I think Charlie's hope is that this film can cut its way into some people's hearts.
Charlie has the heart of the Father in the sense of that he's just searching for people. That he knows nobody's going to go to these people. Nobody's looking for them. They're up in the mountains somewhere so far away. It's such a pain to go up there. So many of us, we want to say, like, I'll witness to people if they come into my bubble. But Charlie's like, no, I'm going to actively search for these people, like a father that's lost their child somewhere. And he's just actively just searching for them. And to go to village after village and just to see him walking through them and to see how they've grown, knowing that before he went up there, they had no clue who Christ was. That's really cool for me to see one man be used by God to impact village after village after village.
'Cause I've heard you, but God, come talk with me, and my heart responded, I am coming. 'Cause I've heard you, but God, come talk with me, and my heart responded, I am coming. When I find you, you will be mine. You have been forever on my mind. When I find you, you will be mine. You will be mine. When I find you, you will be mine. You have been forever on my mind. When I find you, you will be mine. You will be, you will be. Yeah. You will be mine. You will be, you will be. You will be mine.
Far-Flung Tin Can is spreading the gospel and helping others in the most remote places on earth. Our work in Thailand is ongoing and you can be a part. Far-Flung-Tin-Can.com is a place to get plugged into missions. You can apply to join us on our monthly Far-Flung trips, or you can help send us to far-flung places by giving. Living Word International is producing amazing coffee that helps fund their orphanages. You can purchase this coffee at mythaicoffee.com.